Alright, Ronan MMA, welcome back to the channel. This is my picks video for UFC Fight Night, Krylov vs. Spann. This fight night is, again, not one of the UFC's best work, but it is, in my opinion, better than last week's, and we've only got one more to get through before we get the return of Jon Jones, so, let's just get this one over with. I'm excited for next week, and yeah, so before we get into this, please like and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. I will thank you in advance for your subscription. Thank you very much, because I'm Canadian, eh? Now, please don't be the type of guy who doesn't do the thing that he's already been thanked for, and just subscribe. It's easy, it's free, and I'm starting to, get a pretty good library going on here. We got some like 75 videos you can watch, so just subscribe. One click is all. First fight of the night, Eric Gonzalez versus Trevor Peek. Now, Gonzalez is 30 years old. He's 5'11" with a 75-inch reach. He's currently on a 2-fight skid right now, with one of those losses being to Jim Miller, which, I mean, we did just see Jim Miller have a pretty decent performance in a loss, in defeat, right? But it's not the kind of guy that you want to be losing to when you're technically in your physical and athletic prime, right? At 30 years old, you're losing to a 40-year-old Jim Miller. Not the best look. He's also lost to Terrence McKinney, which is not aging the best either, because while Terrence McKinney does have some good finishes, he has kind of been exposed recently in his last couple, where if you are able to make him fight through some adversity and have any attacks up the middle, you could probably do pretty well against Terrence McKinney. And it's strange. It's like 2 losses to people that are in like complete opposite trajectories of their career, right? Like Terrence McKinney's on his way up and Jim Miller's on his way out. So they were both fast finishes. But McKinney, I already said that. This is probably this guy's last chance, in my opinion, to like make a career for himself in the UFC. He's already 14-7, which is quite strange. This isn't typically the kind of record you see in the UFC's men's divisions. I mean, obviously there's a few outliers and a few guys that do have careers like that, but most of the time they are, like Nate Diaz. Like, he's extremely famous. He's got brings tons of eyeballs to the sport. He's a pay-per-view draw. Everybody loves him, this and that. And also, he's fighting against the best guys in the world. And same with, like, Dan Hooker. You know what I mean? Dan Hooker's record does not reflect his abilities. He fights with all the best guys in the world. So, to see a guy 14-7 who's only, fought lower-ranked competition is not great. Whereas Peek, which is who I've picked. I don't know if I said that already. I can't remember. He's 27 years old, 5'9", with a 70-inch reach. He will have a big reach disadvantage. Pardon me. His record is 7-0. Jesus, bro. First thing in the morning. Bear with me. That's why I'm doing this video first, because I got another video I want to do, but I want to be warmed up before we get it started. He was a dog in his fight in the Dana White Contender Series. He had a 6-inch reach disadvantage, which is bigger than the one he will have in this fight. He was able to effectively close distance with leaping shots, a few kicks here and there. The guy's got a serious chin on him also. Ate a ton of shots after being dropped. Guy's young, hungry. Jesus, dude, again? Making his UFC debut. Unlike a lot of undefeated fighters, we know for sure he can fight through adversity. That's one of the reasons why I picked him here. We know that he can fight through adversity. With a lot of undefeated guys, you'll see sometimes when they do get put through some adversity, they're like, holy shit, I've never experienced this before, so what's going on? And I will say also, if a guy like Gonzalez can get absolutely starched by Jim Miller, that is not... That's not a great look, man. That means that your chin's about as solid as my ball sack. So, I mean, Jesus, man. I'd reckon Pete gets a knockout here. Second fight of the night. Jose Johnson, not sure, versus Garrett Armfield. Man, I'm seeing some people pick Jose Johnson, but I'm going with Garrett Armfield. And the reason is because, well, first of all, I'll just go through some of their stats. So Johnson also with another record that you don't typically see in the UFC. He's 15-7. He's 6 foot tall at bantamweight, which is insane. That is nuts, man. He's 27 years old with a 71.5-inch reach. Again, dude, this is not a record that I would expect to see from new male talent in the UFC. Like, I can understand guys like Nate Diaz and Dan Hooker having these types of records when, I mean, they're fighting dudes that are, like, top of their divisions. But when you see a guy who hasn't fought UFC level competition yet, having a 15-7, 14-7 record, it's quite strange. One thing I noticed watching back some of his fights is I don't like the way he circles out of exchanges. His hands are completely down, and his chin's right up there for the taking. I think it's a hole in his game that he's been able to get away with, possibly due to the fact that he is fighting lesser competition in smaller organizations. Whoa. Bro, my sinuses are fucked today. I woke up, it's like minus 26. It hasn't been snowing for like it has been snowing for 2 days. It's crazy. I think that the only reason he's been able to get away with this bad habit of his too is because of his height and his reach advantage that he holds over most bantamweights. But, you know, he does have short arms relative to his height, so the height is really the only thing that gives him his reach. But I don't know, man. I don't know why some people are picking him. Maybe he'll prove me wrong, but, you know, who knows. Again, and then Garrett Armfield's going to be half a foot shorter at 5'6", which is insane, but he will only have a half-inch reach disadvantage, at least when it comes to wingspan, right? Because that's how they measure reach. So it doesn't tell the whole story, but it tells some of it. While he's not as experienced in the amount of fights that he's had, he has already gotten his UFC debut out of the way and up a weight class from where they will be fighting right now at featherweight, where he was and is, I mean, severely undersized, right? Like Volkanovski's featherweight champ, fine, but Volk's a different animal. So I don't, you know, the 5'6" is not typical for featherweight. I honestly think we could see Armfield also get a KO here. If Johnson had a few more sub wins on his record, I might be picking him, but it's mostly decisions, couple stoppages, with maybe 1 or 2 submissions at most early in his career. He barely got a contract from that Dana White Contender Series fight. Had a fairly boring decision win against a way smaller man. So I'm going to be picking Armfield here to get it done. I think he's better overall. And he's probably fought better competition too. Next fight, Haley Cowan versus Aylin Perez. Okay. Perez is coming out of the same promotion that Prado, that guy that we saw get fucked up by Jamie Malarkey a couple weeks ago. That Mickey Mouse Samurai House with stretched out garbage bags for their canvas. So Prado got exposed for cardio issues and some grappling issues. So I think the same thing might happen here. She was winning by finish almost every time out in this Mickey Mouse Samurai House, the same way that we saw Prado winning by like first round KO, first round KO, TKO, all this shit, right? It seems to be a bit of a trend now. So I do like to see finishes coming from a lady, but it seems a bit more of a competition issue than it is a skill thing. Like, again, we saw Prado, who had a bunch of hype on him, and thankfully, or not thankfully, depending on how you bet, the odds reflected Jamie Malarkey's skill set, and they turned out to be completely right. So, and I'm not trying to shit on her. I'm not saying she's not skilled, but her first fight in the UFC, after getting most of her wins by finishes, she gets subbed by Stephanie Eager, who is pretty good, but she's nothing special. Cowan's got good takedown defense, damages her opponent early on in her Dana White Contender Series fight. Dude, she split her open with an elbow right away in the clinch, which I love to see from ladies, because we don't see that a lot, where there are women who can cause like significant damage. A lot of the times when they enter one more day with this camera, guys, one more day. A lot of the times when we see ladies get into a clinch situation, it just, you know, like, I think of Holly Holm fights is what it makes me think of, and yeah, drives me nuts. You know, I think that Haley Cowan gets this one done. I don't think that Aylin Perez is gonna get it done. Maybe she proves me wrong, but dude, women's fights are so hard to pick sometimes because it's just like, I don't know. Sometimes they'll perform, other times they won't. Sometimes they have their period, sometimes they don't. It's just, I don't know. It's a strange one. But I'm going to go with Haley Cowan to get the job done. I don't think that these Mickey Mouse Samurai House fighters are going to get on very well in the UFC. Next fight, we've got Rafael Alves versus Narulo Aliev. Okay. I'm actually, dude, I'm going to go with Rafael Alves here. And there's a few reasons for that. Narulo Aliev got a finish on the Dana White Contender Series. It was a good finish. It was towards, I believe, the end of the round, and he ground and pounded the guy for a TKO, which is good. But that guy that he was fighting, it really did seem like his opponent was tailor-made for him. Like, he was the dude looked young as shit, and I know that this guy's young as well, but he looked like he was fighting a teenager who, again, like, tailor-made. He was a huge favorite. He was absolutely 100% supposed to do what he did to that guy. But then when you look at all of his previous fights, they all are decision wins. Like, this guy wasn't running through people in other organizations. And I don't know that the Contender Series fight is reflective of, like, how dominant we should expect him to be. I know it's a good look and all, and I know that Alves, again, he's one of these guys with the records, but unlike the other two, Alves has been around for a while. And, he had a tough fight with Drew Dober, which immediately you can see or tell from that. So, dude, his last two losses in the UFC are to Drew Dober and Damir Ismagulov. I don't fault anybody for those losses because Drew Dober hurt him to the body. I think it was in the third round, too. It was late in the fight. So Alves is, already tired from their fucking war that they had. And then, dude, who's going to fault anybody to losing, to Damir Ismagulov? The guy's fucking legit as all fucking get out. I mean, he's incredible. And he didn't even get finished, man. It was a decision. And Drew Dober didn't finish him until late. Like, it wasn't like he was getting fucked up the whole time, man. Alves gave Drew Dober a tough fight. You have to go all the way back to 2016 before you find this guy getting finished somewhere in his career. It was early career. So, he had a rough early career, which is fine. But this is one of those guys whose records is not necessarily reflective of their skill set, because a lot of those losses that are on his career came from his early career. Dude, imagine your first fight in the UFC is against Damir Ismagulov. Like, Jesus fuck, man. He subbed Diakese, whatever the fuck, in the first round, which is also a good win, but not great. This guy, though, Rafael Alves, has a ton of... This is one of the reasons why I picked him. If you look at his record and all of his wins, he has a ton of submissions. His favorite one seems to be the guillotine, but he'll choke you any which way he sees fit. I could see him snatching up a guillotine here on Aliev when Aliev is shooting, because sometimes these guys, and I know this guy says he's from Tajikistan or whatever, and off the top of my head, I don't know exactly where that is in relation to places like Dagestan right now, geographically. I would imagine it's somewhere nearby. Sometimes these guys leave their heads open, man. Sometimes they'll chain takedown so much, and they're so confident in their ability to get the fight to the ground that sometimes they leave their head in places they probably shouldn't. I mean, we saw even like Khabib almost get subbed by Dustin Poirier, which I know Poirier would have had to have put him to sleep in order to get the finish that way, but it was close, and Khabib even came out and said later on that was tight, and it was like the only moment where he feared he might lose his title. And we all know that Drew Dober is a very hard guy to submit, and he's not going to give you opportunities unless you're a guy like Islam Makhachev who's going to just, you know, try it over. Like, Drew Dober even put up a bit of a fight against him. He survived for a while on the ground. Drew Dober is no slouch when it comes to submission defense, anti-grappling, all that shit. Alves is dangerous, man. And he's been put through already multiple tough fights at UFC level competition. And while he hasn't came out the winner against those guys, these are guys that Damir Ismagulov, literally, like, if he didn't have to get treatment for that little, like, thing that he does there, that unfortunately is a banned substance, which is so stupid, and it shows you the absolute nonsense that is USADA, and we will get to that in my next video. I can't wait to talk about that topic, but I see Alves getting a finish here. I see him cinching up a guillotine, and if not that, now, we know that Aliev, actually, he does have some level of cardio, right? Because if he's getting that many decision wins, then we know he can go all 3 rounds. But I don't know that we know he can go all 3 rounds against a guy who is going to put up as much of a fight, who is going to be as well-versed on the ground as anybody he's ever fought, who has fought guys that, by all accounts, I mean, by all the numbers that we have right now, are better than this guy. I mean, this guy's young as shit, man, and he's undefeated. I could see what's happened. Fuck, who was the guy that lost last week, man? Who was undefeated, came out there arrogant as shit. Thought he could. I picked him, and I was wrong, right? Oh, Jamal Emmers showed us that Askabov, while being undefeated, that doesn't necessarily always work in your favor. So I have a feeling that this may be Aliev's, like, wake up call to, hey pal, you're in the UFC now. You gotta do some shit differently. Next fight, Ode Osborne versus Charles Johnson. I'm going with Charles Johnson here. I mean, geez, my guy. You can't. How could you not? You know what I mean? Tyson Nam starches you, and you're a minus 360. Like, that's a major letdown. You got flatlined by Manel Kape, which, fair enough, dude. Manel Kape throws some crazy shit, and I think it was a flying knee KO if I'm remembering correctly. But the way Ode Osborne's career seems to be going is, like, every time the UFC gives him a step up in competition, he can't seem to get it done. Right? Like, his last finish in the UFC was a guy who came up from Bellator, and since being in the UFC, that guy only has 1 win by decision. And I don't mean only 1 win by decision and then others by KO or submission. I mean, he only has 1 win, and it was by a decision. Charles Johnson looked great his last time out. The only thing is I wish he would just cut that little bit of fucking hair off at the back of his head. I'm not sure why he keeps it there, but it's a weird little hairdo he's got going on there. He lost his first fight in the UFC against Muhammad Mokaev, which Muhammad Mokaev is a good fighter, man. And also, Charles Johnson gave him a tough fight. And I think, I could be thinking of another fight, but I'm pretty sure Charles Johnson was really upset with the way that decision went. I can't remember how that fight went exactly. I would have to go back and watch it. But what I think this was another, takedown, control time versus damage situation. And if I'm to take him at his word and just imagine that that's what happened, I would have to agree with him. I can't stand that, but whatever. Oh, there was a bunch of takedowns. Okay, I have it in my notes here. I don't know how the fight went, but I know that Muhammad Mokaev landed like 12 or 14 takedowns. But what that does tell me is that means that homeboy got up a lot. You get me? Like, he ain't keeping him down. You got to take him down 12 or 14 times. That means he's getting back up a lot. So, besides that, I've got the notes on the stats here. The strikes were pretty much dead even. So now I'm wondering if a lot of Muhammad Mokaev's significant strikes came from ground and pound, right? If you hit to the body and it's not a jab while you're on top, it's a significant strike, no matter how hard or how soft it may be. Let me know in the comments if you remember how that fight went, and tell me whether or not you think Charles Johnson deserved the decision. I can't remember it perfectly, so I don't want to say. But yeah, since then, man, Charles Johnson's on a 2-fight win streak. You know, he finished Jimmy Flick. It's a good win. And Jimmy Flick won his debut in spectacular fashion and was looking real good. And then Charles Johnson finished him. And then, you know, I have a note here what I already said. I wish he would just get rid of that ridiculous fucking haircut. But to each their own. So Charles Johnson's getting that one done, I reckon. Next fight, Joe Solecki versus Carl Deaton. I'm going with Joe Solecki. He got a majority decision his last time out against Alex De Silva, but before that, he lost a split decision to Jared Gordon. Now, that does not age necessarily well, but what that does tell us is that he's about as good as Paddy Pimblett. Because Paddy Pimblett lost to Jared Gordon. Okay? And I am kind of joking. Paddy Pimblett's not that bad. Like, he's not a bad fighter, but he's not good. That's the problem. There's things that he's good at, for sure. Like, he's a good grappler. But overall, and also relative to the UFC, obviously, relative to the level of competition he would potentially be facing at lightweight, he is not good. And I don't know that if that fight between Jared Gordon and Paddy Pimblett was more that Paddy Pimblett is not as good as people thought he was, or if Jared Gordon is not as bad as people thought he was. You know, maybe Jared Gordon was just a little bit better than everybody gave him credit for. So, but you know, Jared Gordon's a tough out, man. And my camera's not focusing. I can see it, but I'm reading my notes, so I don't care. Okay. But he beat Jim Miller, which is a good sign because Jim Miller's looked good recently and has made some other guys look not so good, like the guy that we talked about at the beginning of the card here. And he finished Austin Hubbard. That's another good win. So I think he's going to get this one done. This seems to be like Deaton's last-ditch effort to make anything of his career. And when I say these kind of things, I am not trying to shit on a guy, okay? I'm just simply saying, like, my opinion. I mean, I'm not shitting on him, but I do think that someone at ATT may have called in a favor with Dana White or something, because yeah, I think Joe Solecki beats him up over 3 rounds, or maybe finds a submission, but who knows? Carl Deaton, the reason why these are a lot of reasons why. First of all, he does look absolutely terrifying with his face paint on for the weigh-ins, so that's a plus intimidation factor, but. He's like 34 years old this year, and he's just making his UFC debut. And this reminds me a lot of another guy that we watched last week, who was making his UFC debut in his mid to late 30s. And I can't remember off the top of my head now who that was, but God damn it, hold on one second. Oh, Themba Garimbo or whatever the fuck, however you say his name. That's who I was thinking of. Okay. He was another dude who had looked good against competition, like, outside the UFC, or not even looked that good, though, if we're being honest, man. And so when he was in, it was kind of like, okay, dude, like, you're old now. You're not even dominating the competition that you are fighting in lower promotions, and not great, you know. This guy doesn't have the worst record like we see, but if you actually go and look at the guys that he did fought, bro, come on now, did fight, Jesus fuck, his record reminds me a lot of the Dagestani guys' records, because he fought a guy, I wrote down some examples, I'm so glad I did this. 4-8 was a guy he beat, 7-9, 15-7, 7-8, like, bro, really? And one of the guys he beat was 5-26. And this guy's coming up to the UFC. He got the only record I could find of a guy that he had beaten that was good was Alejandro Flores at 19-3. You know? And it was a split decision. So this guy is not an ultra high level, and I think Joe Solecki's pretty fucking good, man. He's not, like, amazing, but he's not shit. And with all due respect to Carl Deaton, this is beating up a guy who's 5-26 is not a great look for somebody who's like 34 and about to enter the UFC. Like, this isn't fucking boxing, homeboy. So Joe Selecki gets this one done. Next fight, Jordan Levitt versus Victor Martinez. Victor Martinez, I'm going to say this, but I guess we'll see in the cage, but based on the picture that the UFC has of him, for their bout matchup, he's the most out of shape lightweight I've ever seen in my life. I literally wrote in my notes, quite possibly the fattest lightweight I've never seen. And I'm not talking about like Patty getting fat. My camera literally won't fucking focus at all, which is ridiculous. I'm not talking about Patty getting fat outside of camp. I'm talking about in the fight. You know, the guy does not look, he does not have the most desirable body type, but he did get a finish in his Dana White Contender Series fight, but that guy also had an awful record. There's a lot of awful records. It's the theme of this fight card, man. Awful record after awful record. This dude's lost 4 of his last 6. And in there was finished a couple times. So Jordan Levitt is, you know, it's hard to forgive him after seeing Patty finish him the way that he did, but it's just the levels, man, especially of the lightweight division, you know. Like, Jordan Levitt's not bad by any means. And he was actually looking pretty good in that Patty fight before he lost, but, you know, he's got one other loss on his record, and it's against Claudio Puelles, who is that fucking bitch. And yeah, if we were grappling, he could probably strangle me. But since that guy's absolutely deathly afraid of any striking whatsoever, I would feel pretty confident. I don't want to let him get a hold of me, but that's about it, dude. The guy, I can call him a bitch. Go watch the fight with him and Dan Hooker. The dude's a bitch. You should not be fighting in the UFC if you were literally fucking terrified, like, to fight. It's very strange. He's constantly diving for fucking heel hooks and shit like that. And Levitt is a grappler. So it was a decision loss to Claudio Puelles, which means he didn't get finished, which, from a grappler, right? So that means he was engaging in grappling scenarios, and he was still able to not get subbed, whereas most guys that Claudio Puelles gets to the mat, if your name's not Dan Hooker, he will sub you. But so in Jordan Levitt's career, you see that his 2 losses come to guys that are just better at grappling than him, like one level above his grappling. But whenever he fights a guy who's, you know, okay here and there, like, you know, a better striker than they are grappler, essentially. Obviously, now, if you were to put Jordan Levitt up against a guy like Dan Hooker, I would reckon the same outcome. Like, Dan Hooker probably finishes him. But Joe Selecki, or not Joe Selecki, Jesus fuck, Victor Martinez is no Dan Hooker. His striking is not incredible, but you know what I mean. So I reckon Jordan Levitt gets this one done. It'd be nice to see another slam KO, but probably not. Next fight, Jasmine J. How about that? And she's Canadian. What the fuck is that, bro? Jasaduvicius, possibly. Anyways, versus Gabriel Fernandez. I'm going with Gabriel Fernandez, dude. Now, worst case Ontario is when there's a fighter who's Canadian and they're from worst case Ontario. Just kidding, but Kyle Nelson will forever be a disappointment to me. So, Jasmine is an older woman in terms of a fight career, obviously. 1-1 in the actual UFC, and you have to go back to when she was fighting with girls that had like 3 fights on their record or even making their debut to see finishes. And yeah, I'm not seeing it. So I reckon Fernandez either gets it done with a decision, or I could see her getting like a later round 2 rear naked choke or something like that. Moving on to some more Canadians, eh? Mike Mallet versus Johan Linnes. I'm going to go with Mike Mallet. There's one there's one thing on his record that really bugs me, and it said he got finished by Hakeem Dawodu. But in fairness, that was almost a decade ago, and he was fighting at two weight classes under what he's fighting now. That was at featherweight. So that was like, he was really young in his career. He was 22 years old, right? And he's 6'1", so he probably should never have been at featherweight. But he's also based because he knows that Ontario sucks, and that's why he left to go train in the United States of America. He's going, I think he's at Alpha Male, if I'm remembering correctly. Which, I mean, if I could pick a gym for a guy to go to, I don't know that would be my first choice. Especially not for a bigger guy. I could be wrong if he's with Alpha Male, but I'm pretty sure he is. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong on that. But I guess Uriah Faber's nice enough to maybe be mistaken for Canadian a few times. So, you know, maybe they just meshed, okay? He's got a good record, 8-1-1. He gets a lot of finishes. And, yeah. The only loss I don't like is the Hakeem Dawodu one, man. So, and that would appear to be his only loss on his record, which means that he just realized he was not meant for fucking featherweight at 6'1". So, and Liness, I'll tell you what, man. The only thing worse than being from Ontario is being from Quebec. I'm just kidding. Kind of, but not really. Quebec and Ontario decide our elections here, basically, and it's fucking irritating. So a lot of people that are from Western Canada show contempt towards these two provinces, and while I do understand it is not everybody, it is mainly the big cities that exist in these provinces that vote the way that they do, but it's all jokes, so calm down, okay? I think we could see Mike Mallet get a finish here. Or Malo, however the fuck he wants to say it. Now, next up, co-main event, I think, maybe? No. We gotta go quicker. We're 32 minutes in. Shit, dude. Okay. The return of Tatiana Suarez. I mean, I don't know if I really need to, like, justify my pick for Tatiana Suarez. I hope that she comes in here and has an incredible performance. I hope that she comes in and gets a finish. And the reason I hope that is because I would love to see some new life at 125 pounds. And we just got that amazing performance from Erin Blanchfield. And now throwing another really credentialed grappler in the mix would be a lot of fun. She's a minus 740 according to the UFC websites. That's nuts, dude. De La Rosa's got one loss that I can't forgive, and that's to Macy Barber. And the reason is I can't stand Macy Barber. Holy fuck, bro. Are you kidding me? Just listen, I guess. One more day, guys. We're making upgrades. I don't know why the fuck my camera won't focus, but I mean, yeah. I could see Tatiana Suarez maybe not having as an impressive performance as people would like to see from her. I could see this going to a decision. Just because it's her first... Dude, it's been almost 4 years, right? Like, 2019, I think, was the last time we seen her. And it was because of injuries also. It wasn't like she was just doing other shit. Like, I'm pretty sure her neck's all fucked up, but I hope she gets it done, and then we can see, her versus Blanchfield would be a fun fight. So, next up, Augusto Sakai versus Dante Malice. Ah, man. A tricky one, my boy. I'm going with Augusto Sakai, and I'll tell you why, man. If you look at who Augusto Sakai has lost to, it is not his dude. He's another guy whose record is not really reflective of his abilities, especially at heavyweight. He is not the most technically skilled. He's certainly not athletic. There's a lot of things that are going against him. But here's the thing, guy. His losses, so he's lost 4 in a row. He's lost to Alistair Overeem, who is extremely autistic and without a doubt a crafty veteran who knows when to use what, right? Like, I'm still mad that the referee stopped that Jairzinho Rosenstrike fight because there was fucking 5 seconds left. And who gives a shit, dude? His lip ain't affecting his fucking vision or anything. Just let him finish. Robbie Lawler's lip was just as bad. It was like, like it looked like he had a cleft lip that had been split open. So fucking just let the 5 seconds go, and Alistair Overeem beats Jairzinho Rozenstruik even at the end of his career. But then also, Sergey Spivak, Tai Tuivasa, and there's one other one in there, and I can't remember who it is. Fuck. Really? How can I not think? Oh, Rozenstruik. Who's a good striker, good kickboxer. And Augusto Sakai is not necessarily like a fucking high-level grappler, so I mean, he's going to try and strike with you. That's why Alistair Overeem started taking him down, because I'm pretty sure Augusto Sakai was hurting him on the feet. So Augusto Sakai's literally losing to people who have like all been in talks for a title shot relatively recently, besides Alistair Overeem. But I mean, Sergey Spivak is on a fucking tear. Tai Tuivasa literally fought against Cyril Gane and almost finished him in an interim title fight, knocked out Derek Lewis, all this shit, right? I mean, you know, come on, man. And then Rozenstruik, who again, like, if your name's not fucking Francis Ngannou, goodbye, good night. And then if you look at his wins, even it's a hell of a lot more impressive than this Dante Malas, dude. Ivanov, which it was a decision, but I mean, who the fuck doesn't go to a decision? And then the other guy who he knocked out just went to a hard fought decision with Ivanov is Marcin Tybura. And then, you know, he beat Arlovsky, and he finished Chase Sherman. So Chase Sherman's not the best, and Arlovsky's kind of at the end of his career, but these are tough, crafty dudes. You know, knocking out Tybura is a good win. Mays, though, the first thing I noticed is he finished Parisian late in the 3rd round, I think, but we just saw that Parisian is not necessarily all that good. His performance was pretty fucking awful last week, especially considering he rambled on about his fucking cardio for, you know, so. And then his last time out, he lost a split decision that had to get overturned due to a drug issue with his opponent. But he just doesn't have any like impressive victories for me to go off of against guys that are UFC level or whatever. Next fight. So I'm going with Sakai, and I know that may sound silly because he's lost 4 in a row. He is still the favorite by a small margin, but he's still the favorite, which is crazy. I'm gonna trust in him to know that if he does not get a fucking win, he's gone. And so he needs to win, because you can't lose 5 in a row, even in the heavyweight division. Next fight's Andre Muniz versus Brendan Allen now. This is a fun fight, dude. Andre Muniz, I am going to pick him because, bro, this dude broke Jacare's fucking arm. You better tap quick with this boy, because he plays for keeps, man. He wants to take your arm home with you. It's like Frank Mir-esque. Like, you don't think he could have let up on that armbar a little bit against Jacare Souza? He wanted to prove, I'm the better grappler. Snap your fucking arm. That's nuts. Nuts. Also, if you look at Allen's problem, and this is why I ended up picking Muniz when I was going over their records and shit, I noticed that Allen likes to grapple. Like, that's how he has most of his finishes. He wants to grapple. Hey, my guy, you're not on the level of Andre Muniz. Like, sure, dude, great job. You choked out Kevin Holland. You choked out Carl Robertson. Good wins. Good wins. But these guys are not... You know, Kevin Holland can talk about how he's a black belt all day fucking long. Kevin Holland would have all of his limbs snapped by Andre Muniz. So, Brendan Allen, tap quickly, my boy, because otherwise... your arm might be broken in half. Okay, main event. Now, this is actually a tough one, and it took me a long time to decide on whether or not who I was going to fight, and I'll tell you the reason why. Because I feel like this fight, after watching what Anthony Smith did to Ryan Spann, may feel sort of like foregone, in a sense. Ryan Spann, good against lower competition, and I mean, I'm not shitting on Dominic Reyes, but he had been knocked out, 2 or 3 times previous, before their fight, so... You know, it's kind of like one of those loose in the pickle jar scenarios. Nikita Krylov gets very reckless from time to time. And I I will say this. If he gets into the same kind of exchanges that he got in against Volkan Ozdemir, I would expect Ryan Spann to knock him out. And the reason is because Ryan Spann actually throws straight punches. Straight, hard power punches. Now, I don't know if anybody remembers this fight. It was a long time ago. Mike Goldberg was still the commentary. The UFC was still on Fox. Nikita Krylov fought Walt Harris. And he head kicked him. Beautifully. Beautiful head kick. And then finished him off with ground strikes. It was a really fast fight, too. Like, it might have been less than a minute. If Nikita Krylov uses his fucking brain and does that kind of stuff against Ryan Spann, then Nikita Krylov should, in theory, be able to get this one done with relative ease. Because, you know, Anthony Smith showed us that if you've got any level of counter ability, if you've got good head movement, you've got, you know what I mean, you can fuck this dude up. And if you're a decent grappler, you can fuck this dude up. Now, Krylov is not the best grappler. Jan Blachowicz fucking subbed him, which is a strange one, man. He ran through Gustafsson, and then it's weird to see him go to a hard-fought decision with Volkan Ozdemir. And in that first round versus Ozdemir, this is why it took me so long to pick, man. He gets hit so much, like too much. And eventually, that chin will go. Eventually, the chin's going to go, man. Now, it's not like he's losing to bums. You know, Krylov, that is, lost to Glover, Ankalaev, and Jan Blachowicz type shit. Another one that does not age the best is he got subbed by Misha Serkinov, but Ryan Spann's not going to be subbing him. So, dude, this one is, I almost want to change my pick again and pick the underdog, but I don't have that much faith in Ryan Spann. And I feel like if Krylov, like his coaches are going to be telling him, don't fucking do that. Don't do what you did with Volkan Ozdemir, because Volkan Ozdemir throws only hooks. He's like Jessica Andrade, but 205-pound men. He throws only hooks. It's a new fucking website, guys. Join his onlyhooks.com. Because I don't know why he does it, man, but he does, and it's strange. But eventually Krylov's chin's going to give out. I don't think that this is going to be the fight, but it will eventually. So I'm going to go with Krylov here, but barely. And I would not, and you should not be surprised if Ryan Spann gets a finish. Finally, we got through it. Wow, 43 minutes long. Holy shit. I got to go do another video on John Jones and USADA. So I'm going to get into that now that I'm warmed up. The second half of this video was probably much better than the first one. Thank you very much for watching. And like and subscribe, please. I thank you very much in advance for your subscription. And if you were somebody who got offended and unsubscribed from my last video, thank you, because I've weaned you out now. And I don't have to deal with your fucking bullshit wokeness somewhere down the line. And you'll regret it when I have thousands of subscribers. So thank you very much, and like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.